In what feels like another inevitable crushing blow for the UK taxpayer, it looks like we are destined to spend nearly another £4.5 billion housing illegal channel migrants in hotels over the next 3 years. Channel migrants will be housed in hotels at the taxpayer's expense for 3 more years. Channel migrants will be housed in hotels at taxpayer's expense for up to 3 more years, it was reported last night. Ministers fear a backlog of asylum cases will take longer to clear than expected, meaning many migrants will remain long-term in full board accommodation. Full board meaning they get fed 3 square meals a day whilst being housed all at the taxpayer's expense. They refer there to the number of asylum cases. Now this is just the never-ending cycle. Someone comes into the country illegally, then claims asylum, and whilst that takes an absolute age to be processed and inevitably denied by the government, they will then be housed at the taxpayer's expense, and then when their asylum application is eventually rejected, they'll probably appeal, which again will take months and months, if not years, to process and to decline, and the cycle continues, meaning that these people who arrived here quite clearly illegally, unvetted and unchecked from wherever they came from in the world, will continue to stay fully funded at the taxpayer's expense here in the UK. Sorry to interrupt the video very quickly. If you're not already subscribed, please just hit that subscribe button. It's completely free. There'll be no hard feelings if you change your mind at a later date. At the moment, only 5% of people who watch my videos regularly are actually subscribed. So let's change that around a little bit. Hit that button and it'd be greatly appreciated. It helps me more than you know. There'll also be a link in the description down there if you want to buy us a beer. But for now, back to the video. Around 30,000 migrants, most of whom arrived in small boats, are currently living in hotels at the cost of more than £4 million a day. So if this saga does continue for at least another 3 years, and let's face it, the government always give optimistic figures to the public, so dare we say it might be longer than that, that equates to the equivalent of around £4.5 billion of taxpayers' money going to fund people that shouldn't have been here in the first place. And all this time, there doesn't really seem to be any plan, any news, any strategy for stopping these people coming into the country. So even if this 30,000 potential asylum applications is eventually cleared, in the meantime, there will be more and more people coming to our shores illegally, unvetted and unchecked in these small boats, meaning that the cycle will continue and it will be a never-ending expense. All the while, we are removing the heating allowance from our older people, we are increasing the tax burden for people who actually get off their backsides and go to work for a living, and all this time public services are suffering. Hospitals and doctors, dentists and schools are collapsing under the weight of the influx of additional demand. The infrastructure is breaking at the seams, and all the time there is no end in sight of these small boats coming over the channel. And this is not to mention the sheer number of legal migrants that are coming to the country every year, who also put a burden on public services and on infrastructure. Whilst the immigration issue goes unaddressed, this is a never-ending cycle. And this isn't to say that all immigration is bad, but there does need to be some sort of system put in place. There needs to be a strategy, and this strategy needs to be communicated to the British public. Otherwise, what we will see is tensions, like we saw last month, continue to flare up. We will continuously see conflict between the public, the immigrants themselves, but also with the authorities and with the police. People are getting angry. It's what's happened in France. You can put a sticking plaster over the riots and the protests by going out and sending a message to people, by giving unnecessarily long jail sentences to people who may have gone out and protested either peacefully or the wrong side of peaceful. Whilst the underlying reasons for the frustrations that have caused these protests and these riots goes unaddressed by the ruling elite classes, you will continue to get pockets of disorder, you'll continue to get pockets of rioting popping up regularly, as we've seen in France, until they actually take the bull by the horns and they tell the British public what they're going to do to address their very genuine concerns about not only the sheer volume of people coming here, not about the fact that they are unvetted, unchecked, and in many cases have no legal identity, but also in the massive burden that's been put on our public services that people have spent their entire lives working towards, paying towards, but also about the erosion of the British culture we see, with cities like Birmingham now having less than 50% of a white British population. This is not racism, this is common sense. This is standing up for us, for our children, for our children's children, a society that's becoming ever more fractured, public services which are becoming under more and more strain, infrastructure which is creaking at the seams, and a crime rate which is only ever going to go up whilst we don't know the identities of the people coming in and roaming our streets. Stay safe, stay sane.